What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD mode interview every single week. We interview top entrepreneurs, top real estate agents, and straight up top badasses that they're dominating their space. These are people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create big, amazing, epic lives for themselves and their families, as well as have a big impact on others. And that's why they take time out of their busy day to share their wealth of knowledge here on the show with us. So today, guys, another rock star special guest. So our guest today, guys, is a real estate agent team leader in the Washington D.C. area, and is on track to close he and his team over 250 transactions in 2018, so this year. But he's a dude that's got a lot of other stuff going on. You know, he owns a construction company, insurance agency, and a lot of other stuff in addition to this. So I'm really stoked and honored to have Chris CRADDOCK on the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks so much, brother. I really appreciate it. Listened to the show for a long time, learned a lot, and yeah, really excited to be on here with you, man.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to jump on in, man. Yeah, so like, before we get into what you're doing today, because before we hit the record button, man, we're talking about a lot of things, and you got a lot of cool stuff going on, right? And what's cool about you, dude, is you can tell that you're an entrepreneur. You're a business owner that happens to be in real estate, and you're treating this as a business, and you're looking at many different layers of opportunities that exist, which we'll talk about, which I think is brilliant. But before we get into that, man, I'm always intrigued in our guest journey that led him into real estate in the first place. If we run the clocks, man, like, how'd this all start?
Yeah, man. So I started off, I've been a salesman since I was a little kid. I don't know if you, do you remember those little pot holders like in the early 80s that, I don't know. I got some of those for Christmas, started making those bad boys, and just like went out, knocked on doors, selling them for like $1 or whatever. And just always had something going on. And then in college, I worked for a landscaping business and didn't think it was being run that well. And so I bought the landscaping business, and then, it ended up kind of doing a quasi flip on it over a couple of years, put it in good working order, sold it. I'll tell you what, people that work with their hands, awesome. But I didn't long enough to realize I didn't want to work with my hands for the rest of my life. Enjoyed it at first, but man, it is hard work. Everything's hard, right? But but it just wasn't for me, at the end of the day. So I was able to sell it for profit, and it was awesome. Went on staff with this organization called Young Life. I loved Young Life. My life was changed through it, and made about 20 grand a year, but I did it because I loved it. And 2003, my wife got pregnant, and ran over to the library because it was before Google was the fount of all info, and picked up every book they had on investment and just thinking big, Rich Dad Poor Dad type books. And in a week, I just read. I just went through everything. I'm a little neurotic. Like when I'm in, I'm all in, man, and get it done, right? And so, and then. And just like an idiot, just started knocking on doors of people that, were out there with distress. And crazy thing is, in 4 months, I made about 12 times what I made in a year. And, I was just like, this is crazy. But I really love doing ministry. So I kind of, we bought the house that we bought, I've got 6 kids. And, yeah, it's nutty, man. It took us a long time to figure out what caused them. Now that we know, we can kind of but anybody that has kids, they know that it's like having a bathtub full of money. Somebody just pulls the plug, and so it just like drains out. It's gone. And so I started doing some contracting just to make ends meet. And then for some reason, I was just like, I'm working these crazy hours making peanuts. Like, why don't I go back into real estate investing? And so I went back into real estate investing, and the market had changed. The bottom had fallen out. It's like 2011. And so you realize that the flips were in short sales and not people that had high equity, because, the equity was basically gone. And, I realized that their banks were going to pay people, pay the agents. So I got my license just to flip my own short sales. And, since then they've changed the margins and stuff. It's not as where it was, but I got introduced to KW. I've got a doctorate in leadership. I've always led large teams doing ministry stuff. And so it just made a lot of sense to me that building a team in real estate just made sense. And so since then, we've, it's been about 4 years now. And, by the end of the year, we'll have about 20 agents in our hub here in the D.C. area, D.C., Virginia, Maryland, and have a team down in Richmond, 11 agents down there, and then a team in Virginia Beach, and with that we just opened up there. a handful of agents down there, and then a team in Fredericksburg with a handful of agents. And yeah, man, it's been a fun ride. I'll say that.
Dude, that's insane, right? I mean, it's only 4 years.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
it's been awesome.
It's crazy, dude. So let's break that down, man. Let's talk like year one. Because we all know the stats, right? 90% of agents fail in their first 3 years. And like, what did you do out of the gate? Obviously, you're a friggin' hustler. Right? You do that, like, we want to put in the work. So, like, what did year one look like, and how did you ensure that you won another statistic?
Yeah, I mean, so part of it, like I said, I just kind of, when I do something, I put the blinders on and go. Like, I mean, anybody that's successful understands, what is it, that Thomas Edison quote, so many people miss opportunity because it's dressed in overalls and looks like hard work, right? So that's the whole thing. I mean, people in my office, they always would joke with me because I got my headset that I always keep with me. And literally, I put my headset on, and somebody told me this. They said, don't stop your day until you get a lead, referral, or appointment. And so some days it's like 9:30 in the morning, and I get one, and I'm like, man, I'm like the best that's ever done this, and then the next day it's like 6:30 at night, and I'm like, man, I'm the worst that's ever done this. Yeah. You're just going and going. But that was the whole thing, man. Just getting on the phone and just cranking out the calls. I heard somebody say, you just throw yourself in front of opportunity. I mean, literally, real estate, it's not rocket science. It's mindset, activity, and skill, right? So you get the mindset to like just throw yourself out there, talk to enough people, and then just continue to grow and learn, and I mean, literally, part of the reason I did so well is I came across your podcast. There's a handful of others that I just would listen to, like, top agents from across the country. And I just kept hearing the same thing over and over again. Just pick up the phone and make a call, go to classes and learn. And it's funny, it's not rocket science. You do the work and it works.
Yeah. No, I love it, man. Yeah. You get so many agents that will, get together and role play, right. And I'll tell agents all the time, and they'll get surprised with this sometimes, but I'm like, dude, like, I'm going to role play to my life. And right, when they look at me like, well, isn't that important? I'm like, all right, dude, I can role play with you right here, or I can role play right here with a customer. At least here I have the chance to get in business. Like, no matter what, I'm mastering my craft. Yeah, right, doing the work. Like, this is the more effective way to role play. Right, of doing that. And you're a guy that you just took action. Right. So you're taking, well, first of all, like, I know a lot of our listeners will be interested in, like, who were you calling? Was it just like picking up the phone book A to Z, or like who was they calling?
Yeah, so I started off with just my sphere. So because I did ministry, I had a big sphere. So I was a step up in that. But I went through my book. I spent some time, and there's that place on Facebook where it says people you may know. And I spent probably about 15 minutes a day just going through that and friending anybody that I knew, liked, and trusted, and that I felt like knew, liked, and trusted me. And so I just added to that. And then the crazy thing is I would pick a day and start with A, and just, everybody on there, I just call in the A's and just let them know I was in real estate, and asked if they knew anybody that was looking to buy, sell, or invest. And, and also have a good conversation. I mean, one of the things, I try to be a good friend to people, ask them about their life, ask them, you were talking about just, helping by, almost having the concierge service, and I would always ask, I think I'm a connector. If somebody needs something, I've always tried to help them with it. I almost can't help myself. If somebody says they're going somewhere and they, they're like, hey, any food places around? And I'm like, oh, you got to try this place. I get excited about it. So I love to connect people and just add value to their lives. And then, I think there's that law of reciprocity. You add value to other people's life, and they're going to be happy to help you and serve you.
Yeah, no, I love it, dude. And you look at the stats, man. I mean, 59% of all homes sold. So like last year, 5.3 million homes that were sold in the United States. 59% came from a realtor, like they chose a realtor, a friend, family member, right, relative, past realtor, and or referral from one of those sources. Then you look at all cold call phone prospecting combined. So circle prospecting, expires those, that's like 6% combined. Yeah, right. Yeah. But it's like all these agents spend so much time on the scraps, where the gold is, those relationships that you have. And I'm not saying I go after the scraps too, only once. I've maximized and I've got my plan in for that gold, right? And you tapped in that right out of the gate. So, when you said, because my guess is that the conversation kind of had happened reverse of the way that you just explained it, of like, you probably like call them up, hey, how's it going? What's going on? Like a lot of reciprocity, like you're being interested in them, checking in on them in their life. And they're probably asking like, hey, well, how are you doing? Oh, well, it just so happens to be like, check this out. Like, you're talking about getting in real estate. And then that's kind of leading into that. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You give people a call, you ask them how they're doing, you ask them about their life. I mean, honestly, part of it, I don't know if you've ever read any Dale Carnegie stuff, but I love like How to Win Friends and Influence People. One of my favorite books of all time. So good. But one of the points in there is just be genuinely interested in other people. And, one of the things I found is, I've done a lot of things in my life. And so one of the things that I've just found is when I talk to somebody, I see them getting excited about something. I'm like, well, if it's something that I'm not normally excited about, there's something cool about it, because otherwise they wouldn't be excited about it. So I like to ask questions and, ask them about it. And people love to talk about themselves, right? So, and, you can learn from that. So I have fun doing that. I enjoy it. I know some people don't, but if you don't, I mean, I don't know. I think that's just one of the ways we can love and serve people is, asking about themselves. And I mean, we can learn, like everybody is better than us in some fashion and something. So why wouldn't we, why would we be so arrogant that we would not want to learn from other people? I mean, it's just kind of stupid to me.
Yep. 100%. Dude, love it, man. So then, all right, so your first year at Gate, man, I mean, you're showing up, you're pounding phones, you're doing everything you can to set an appointment a day, you're working it, and, you continue on that path. At what point does the team like start, and does that transition happen?
Yeah. So it was actually pretty early on. I got a couple guys that, were buds of mine. We started doing house flipping stuff. So I had kind of the back office stuff, which I think a lot of people get into so late because they don't see having assistants as a dollar productive, where, the reality is, having people working there, maybe it's not dollar productive, but without it, it's very much dollar destructive, in my opinion. It keeps you from doing the things that you're supposed to do. 80-20 principle. If I'm on the phone, if I'm making flyers, I'm not on the phone, and I know I'm darn good on the phone, right? And so we had that, and so I brought in people almost right away to help them, help them grow, help me grow. I love Zig Ziglar. You can have everything you want in life if you help them get what they want in life. And so, just helping the leaders, the agents on the team become leaders in their sphere and their circle, and giving them, opportunities to Boomtown and, some of the distress stuff that we did for flipping, kind of putting agents in that world and teaching them that world, just finding sellers that are raising their hand saying, I need to sell. And then, just from that point, just realizing that growing the team is really the key, and leverage is how you win, So that was kind of the deal. Like in year one, we had 2 agents, and then started, year 2 started growing with a handful more agents. Year 3 was when we started going all in with agents. And I did make a mistake at that point where I just, there were a handful of folks, great people, but we're not hungry, right? They weren't working. They weren't willing to work. I realized in the morning I was making more calls than like a group of them combined. And, I just felt like Jerry Maguire, help me help you, that kind of stuff. And I was like, come on. And so that was one of the things I realized was, when you hire people that aren't hungry, they're great people, but it's just not, sales isn't the goal, man. Because, a 9 to 5 would be a much better solution for them. And I found that out the hard way. It cost me a lot of time, energy, and money. And, it also cost them time, being in the wrong place. So,
yeah, man. And I'm guessing, because from when your wife first got pregnant, right. And you started jumping into the investment books to, as soon as you get into real estate, like you jump in the podcast of, like when you listen to this podcast, I'm sure you heard this a lot of times when you first got into it, but there's not a team leader that I've ever spoken to that started growing the team without hiring out the admin staff first, that didn't live to regret it, and as you said, man, people don't think about time, right? Like I hate the quote, time is money, right? Because it's not, right? Like it's so much more precious than money, right? We can print more money. You can't get time more back. And I'm a data freak. So we track our average time per every activity that we do. So like our average listing input, all said and done, is 5 hours. Contract to close is 10 hours. So the average agents that, let's just say, not average, but an agent out there is listing 2 new listings a month and closing 4 deals. Yeah, right. I mean, you're talking 60 hours a time. Like how much is your time worth, and what can you create with that? And I love that you brought that up, man, because dude, it feels like, I don't know the stat of it, but it feels like 90% of agents do it the other way and just implode.
Oh yeah. And well, this is a conversation my wife and I were having the other day. It's funny because, when you're making no money doing ministry stuff, I mean, you're willing, to trade so much time for money, I mean, I think of ridiculous jobs I did. One of my buddies owned a carpet business. And so like we went and, vacuumed, carpet, when it was installed, the little pieces of carpet that, so, did that for like $50, I mean, when we were in our early 20s. Actually, here's a sweet job. My wife and I, my hands are not that pretty. I don't know if you see them, but $300 to be a hand model, for this direct mail thing. So like all these like weird things. And then you realize like you trade your time for money. But it's funny because once you hit some, and I don't know where it is, I'm curious, but, you might have a better thought on this, but once you hit some sort of success threshold, all of a sudden, you want to trade money for time. Your time becomes that much more valuable, and you just see the world, like the world just becomes inverted. You see it differently, and it comes at some level of success. And so this was just a conversation my wife and I were having. I'd be curious what your take is on that. Like, where does that level, like, where does that shift, for most people?
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of it just seems like human beings. I know I'm this way, and it seems like most are. Like we learn from pain, right? Like we're not necessarily chasing pleasure. We're avoiding pain. Yeah, right. And maybe you get enough pain that shows up in your life. Like, all right, I'm gonna start chasing pleasure, but that's typically where it starts. Where you don't know when you have an abundance of time, that's not pain yet. But very quickly, it's like there's just not enough hours in a day, and for most agents. And it depends on marketplace, wherever. But once you get an individual agent with no help, right? Like you're on your own, dude. 4 deals a month, 3 to 4 deals a month. Like once you hit that, like let's say 4 deals a month, you do that consistently because you're gonna have to do your prospecting, your follow up, right. Plus, working with the clients, plus doing a contract to close, plus past client follow up, plus getting your account and your receipts, and when you're wearing all hats. Right, that starts to show pain, right? So like for me, now this was 2005. So like we had razor flip phones, no DocuSign and whatever. The capacity might be a little bit higher today, but I was working 12 a.m. or 4 a.m. to midnight. Yeah, right. And I was, averaging 4 to 5 deals a month. I mean, I did 48 deals that year. And that's where the pain showed up of like, dude, like this is just not sustainable, right? So the pain and, plus that goals I want to get to, like, so then once it becomes a problem, then you start seeking that solution. And most people probably never get to a success level where they identify it as a problem, right? But for hustlers, you do. But dude, it's such a game changer, man. And a guy that's in your market that you probably know, Leo Pareja, owner of Remind, who's a good friend of mine. He was the one, like that dude is the most obsessed guy I've ever seen with time. Like, like I'm pretty obsessed with time. That dude is on another level. Right. And you start breaking out, like most people calculate time per hour. Like that is like time per minute, right? And spend some time with him. We should really start breaking this stuff down. And, like I had a coach one time, and I do this every 90 days now, but I'll do a 24-hour calendar, right? And I'll do this for 2 straight weeks, but every 15 minutes, my time is accounted for, like what I'm on. Like obviously I'm sleeping, I block that off. Or I'm gonna list a presentation, it's 3 hours, you block that off. But then, and you don't even think about it, just do it for 2 weeks. And then you start reviewing that and you're like, oh my God, there's so much waste, right? Or things that can be delegated of, like as you talk about, like there's a point where, okay, we all got to clean our own houses and, whatever. But you get to one like, dude, when you're making $100,000 a year, right? So like with what your time is worth, let's just say $50 an hour. Like, dude, you shouldn't be mowing your own grass. You shouldn't be washing your own car. Like you shouldn't be taking your car to get an oil change. Now where most people get themselves in trouble though, is they start delegating those tasks. I want to kick up their feet, right? No, you got to reinvest your time to take it to the next level.
Right.
But it's a game changer.
Well, that's something my wife and I are talking about like right now. I mean, with 6 kids, I mean, we have them all, like they're all doing their chores and all the other stuff. but like our laundry is like unmanageable. She's spending hours and hours and hours every week. And I'm like, Catherine, your time is, I mean, she's high level marketer. You know, I'm like, your time is so much more valuable than this. Why don't we can hire somebody to come over and do the laundry. And, you know, you just put that time back into the business. It's going to make so much more. So, yeah, I mean, this is that conversation. I mean, it's such a game changer for so many people that don't realize it. I mean, and the last thing I'll just throw out on this was I realized early on, one of my buddies, when I was flipping houses, I asked him to go put a lockbox on a house. It was like a 2-hour round trip. And he's like, dude, I'm not going to do it. And I got so furious with him. I'm like, I just thought that was like, it was just so stupid that he wouldn't go drive and drop a lockbox on. And he's just like, my time's not worth it. And we got into a big argument. And I realized how wrong I was, because now, I mean, it takes me 31 phone calls to get a deal. In 2 hours, how many phone calls could I get on that? Or if you're recruiting an agent or whatever it is that you're doing to bring in money into the organization versus, you know, hiring somebody for $20 to drop off a lockbox. I mean, it's a no-brainer. And it took a long time to figure that out.
Well, and you know, and I don't know, I'm making an assumption here, so I guess I don't know, but you know, with your ministry work, you know, right, it probably, you know, like you realize that, hey man, like because you're dealing with like, hey, like we're here, we're going to exit at some point. Like, what do we do this? And you're probably having more deeper conversations and more reflection on that than others that are just kind of sleepwalking through life. Right. Of, you know, like, dude, this is all going to end. And when you start reflecting on this stuff, it's like, well, what are you going to regret? You're going to regret like, oh, I wish I would have done more loads of laundry, or that hour and a half of time. Cause it's not all about making more money. Right. It's like, hey, if we have somebody just come over for 2 hours a day to do the laundry and do the dishes, like we can eat dinner and then we can play a board game with our kids. Like no mom's gonna be like, oh, I wish I vacuumed more floors. But it's like, hey, I wished, yeah, right, that was, you know, more present with the kid. Like there's just, you can't get that back, you know, right? Actually where you're at, dude, because by DC, so Leo does this, Leo Preja, there's, I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're called au pairs. Yeah. So he has 2 of them that, you know, they're in their house and they're each, but the whole thing with it is, I don't know, it's like, it's $600 or $800 a month. That's it. And you get 40 hours, you know, of work out of them. Whatever that is, watching kids, nanny, cleaning, whatever. But you got to provide room and board, and you got to provide a vehicle, you know, because they're going to school. And it's a government program, right, where they're coming here to get their citizenship. And, you know, like Leo says, he's like, dude, all my homies are, you know, going out there and buying Lambos and Teslas. And, you know, and he's like, dude, like I invest that money to these 2 au pairs and now it gives me the time, you know, right? But for that rate, dude, like if the average person just cut out their Starbucks, they could afford it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, that's the big key. I mean, and it all comes back to mindset on how you view life, how you view everything. I think, you know, that's the crazy thing is, you know, when you first start, it's just doing it. And you realize that a lot of just doing it goes back to the mindset of like, why are you doing it? And so often people think that getting your mind right on all this stuff is like, you know, it's just like rah-rah or whatever motivation. And it's not just, I mean, there's a system to mindset, like understanding your why, understanding like, why are you doing what you're doing? You know, understand like, why is it important to have your time back? Why is it important to make the money? And like getting your mind on all that stuff correct is in my opinion, it's the game changer. And so all this stuff that we're talking through, a lot of times, I mean, you mentioned the words like sleepwalking through life. Like I think that a lot of us like sleepwalk through business, sleepwalk through our family, sleepwalk, you know, and we're just playing defense all the time instead of being purposeful about like what we want, you know? Yeah,
it's Benjamin Franklin's, you know, famous quote of the average man dies at the age of 17. They're just not buried till the age of 80. Yeah, right. So because this, I think this is so important. You're like, yeah, we could talk about, you know, and we'll talk about, you know, more team growth, but it's like, I mean, all of that, don't get me wrong. Like all that, those tactical things are very important, but this is 90% of it, right? Control your mind, control the world. Like this is like, there is no, I mean, we're in an industry with more free information than any other industry that exists on the planet with least performing people. It's not an information problem. It's like, why aren't you doing the things you know you should be doing to create the life that you know you want and deserve? And my peak performance coach says, you know, that goal will motivate you. Conviction pulls you. And she compares it to the rocket, right? Like the jets, Right? That's the goal. That's the motivation. But, and that's needed to get you off the ground, right? But eventually you get to a height where you start to be pulled into the atmosphere and then orbit. And at that point, they detach, they drop the rockets, like they're gone. And then they don't need them. They're just being pulled. And that's where, like, if you're relying on motivation, that's where burnout happens, right? But like, dude, like there's no such thing as grind or work, like when you're being pulled, because when you're clear on that conviction. But you said that it's a system, right? Can you like walk us through, like what works for you and how do you stay so, clear and keep pushing? Because
bro, let me share this story that I think is the most powerful analogy and the most powerful story I've heard in a long time. And then I'll just walk through like my system for like getting my mind right. Cause it all starts in the morning, right? So I teach a lot of classes, I do a morning huddle where I teach my team ahead, like, in the mornings. And, one of the girls on my team, she came and sat in a class, there's like 75 agents in there or whatever. And during the class, she's like, I hear you say this stuff all the time, like in our morning huddles, but like when you're teaching it in front of people, like I actually listen. I'm like, oh, nice. Good. That's cool. But she was an All-American field hockey player. And, obviously, pretty successful, there. But she's like, when I heard you talk about a morning routine to get yourself set for the day and to really go on the attack and go on offense during the day, she's like, I realized if I don't treat my business like I treated field hockey. With field hockey, the night before I'd hydrate, I'd come out and, I'd look at our game plan for the game. I'd come early, I'd run, I'd stretch out, I'd get hydrated. I'd listen to music to pump myself up. And then I'd be ready to go when I stepped on the field. She's like, with my business up until now, I just roll out of bed in the morning and come to work and then just deal with whatever comes at me. And she's like, and you're talking about like getting your morning set. She's like, if I treat my business like I treated field hockey, it would be night and day different. And I was like, dang, that is powerful. And so for me, I think this is the biggest change. So, listen, I can give you every script, sell or be sold, right? I can sell you on why being a night person is better. And I'm sure somebody can find somewhere like some successful person that's a nighttime person. But, I read tons and tons of books and like I love biographies. And just overall, if there is a nighttime person that's more successful, it's an outlier. So you see, waking up early it's just something that successful people do. And so I started waking up early, even though I'm a nighttime person. And I started going through my whole morning routine so that I could get the stuff done I need to do. I wake up, I got a legal pad. I write down all my stuff on the legal pad, my goals, like feed my why. Like these are the things these are the things that I am accomplishing now. And then, I'm a Christian guy, so I read my Bible. I feed my spiritual why. I go downstairs. I got a gym in my basement. I go downstairs. I work out. I've got I'll either listen to a podcast or listen to like some Audible book or something like that, or turn on the computer and watch a YouTube video, like some sort of training, feed my mind while I'm working out. I like the Beachbody type stuff just because it's easy. It's a system, push play and show up, don't overthink it. And, I used to do a lot more in-depth stuff. And I think at one point, maybe I will again, but it's just easy, right? You do it, Genius of the And from Jim Collins, listening to something, feeding your mind at the same time as you're feeding your body. And then I go upstairs with my kids and I have breakfast with my kids and do some sort of training. Right now we're going over John Wooden's success pyramid. And so we're going through each one of those with the kids, like skillfulness, like all the different piece of the success pyramid, talking through it. And it's just awesome. And then I go upstairs, I shower, I got my Bluetooth speaker, I'm listening to a podcast or like something, again, feeding my mind because I got to get that done. And then I come out, I do like a kind of like a 5-minute staff meeting with my wife of like, what's going on today, making sure I don't miss any kid events. And then I head to work. And usually I'm either have a meeting, like a phone call with one of my other businesses I own, or listen to a podcast, again, feed my mind in the morning so that I step into my morning huddle and I'm ready to rock and ready to go for the day. So, and then, I'm taking the day on offense instead of defense. So that's my routine.
I love it, man. I love it, dude. So, what time are you stepping in the office in? Like, what time is all this stuff?
I actually get in the office a little bit later than a lot of other people do. I'm at 9. 9 is short, and we do 9 to 9:30. We do accountability numbers with our agents. I do a little training, and then we'll handle some objection together on something, and then we just jump on the phones and hit it.
Yeah, I love it. But think about that, dude. By 9 a.m., you have more accomplished than most people probably do in a week, right? I mean, as far as, because I always hear this from a lot of entrepreneurs that are parents of like, oh man, well, I just feel this guilt that I'm not with my kids more. I'm like, it's not that you're not with your kids more. It's that the time that you're with them, you're not there and you're not having an impact. I'm betting when you get to work, because you just had like daddy university with the kids, where like, I mean, the greatest thing that we could ever do with a purpose for our kids is to develop them into amazing leaders, right? So like first thing in the morning, like you're getting your mind right, you're getting your body right, so you can show up to them and the best version of yourself to have that impact. Yeah, right. Yeah. And being a leader to the most important people in the world, then you can go lead there where, dude, like I don't think people pay attention to energy. Yeah, right. And if you have guilt, that's gonna, like, I gotta imagine like you get in those morning huddles and you're freaking on fire by that point.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. I mean, it's just like anybody that's an athlete knows the difference between when you were ready to step on the field and like when you're running late and you get there and you're frazzled and, everything else. So yeah, it's important, and even in the car, it's something that we stopped taking as many plane trips. I like road trips now in the car with the family. And during it, we'll do something where the kids can listen to whatever they want to listen to or watch whatever they want. But then during the time, we spend a couple hours like listening to some sort of, personal development stuff. And it's so funny because they think every personal development audio is Zig Ziglar. And so I'll put it on the wall. Yeah. Not Zig Ziglar again. No, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think that a lot of times, as leaders, we'll spend so much time working on our teams, and we'll forget that we're also supposed to be leaders of our family and our children.
Yeah. No. Well, hey, dude, what's like the age from youngest to oldest?
Yeah. So our oldest is 14, freshman in high school. And she just, it's crazy, man. I'll tell you what, I was a dirtbag dude in high school, and I do not want these guys coming over. Actually, our first picture, we had a homecoming picture with all the boys because she's got 4 brothers, and then we got a massive German Shepherd. And I pulled out my shotgun, standing in front of us. Sorry, I lost you there. And then our youngest is 2, and our third one is so we got 14, 12. Our 10-year-old, we actually adopted him when I was overseeing like a college group beach trip. Somebody came back with an orphanage video when they were doing mission work in Ghana, and it just touched me. And so we were actually supposed to go through Ghana. It fell apart, and essentially there was an opportunity for an adoption actually right down the road from us with a crisis pregnancy. And they're like, well, if you're willing to adopt a Black child from Ghana, how about here? And it worked out. And I'll tell you what, it's probably one of the best, like with all the cultural, racial stuff going on in this world, having a family like this it's just awesome. And then, his little brothers is so funny. Like Blaze, our fourth, when he's like 3 years old, he's like painting himself brown to try to look like Christian. And you're like, this is just, it's the world that we should live in, where, everybody's like that. And then, and it goes down to 2. So anyway.
Yeah. Love it, dude. Love it, man. So, all right. So then with your business, man. So, all right. So you're growing the team, expanding the team, right? One thing, cause I'm a team leader, like, just like you, I don't have, I'm not a broker owner. I just hang my license at a brokerage here and operate my team. And, the expansion thing is really, Gary Keller, really, I shouldn't say just Gary Keller, Keller Williams, right, is really what kind of made that really take off and popular and kind of the innovators of that, at least the first that I saw. And, and I've looked into it many times and I get asked about it all the time. And, I'm always like, all right, like, yeah, it makes sense and whatever. But then, then I get torn of, well, like, why not put all my energy here in one area and blow it up? And then if I got to a max capacity, which is 5 million people here in my area, you got more probably in the DC area of, like it would take, right. So, because that's where my mind always goes of, could I be more, if I was just more focused on one area compared to being spread out, or the expansion. So kind of walk us through, because I'm sure maybe you had some of those thoughts of like why expansion, and and how that all come about.
Yeah. So with it, I think part of the model that we have, I mean, it is replicable, right? And at some point, you squeeze an orange, you get so much squeeze. There's just some things that are just low hanging fruit that if you're able to take, and we talked about this earlier, like the systems that you have. Most agents don't have those systems. They struggle with it. Most entrepreneurs, I mean, they don't interact well with people that are built very, very much, organizationally. And so being able to just kind of have that system there, or they're not willing to invest that money in the front end to get somebody good. Like, I mean, you just see the people in and out the door, admin. I mean, you see it all the time with teams, right? They're in and out the door with their admin because they don't pay them well enough, or they don't treat them well enough, or both. And so if you get a system where you treat your admin staff awesome, you pay them well, and you get a system that's really good, rock solid, then people can plug into it. And it's not, I mean, I never want to say easy because, it's simple, but it's not easy, right? But it's, you just plug people in and get them going. But I do think that you're right. I mean, in the fact that you can continue to grow your hub. And I think that that's something we probably expanded a little too early when I look at everything, because there's just a lot more meat on the bone here. But the people that we started expanding with just were such high talent people that at some point when talent shows up, it's hard to not go in business with really, really high talent people. So.
Yeah. I mean, like if let's just say it hasn't happened yet, but if it did, like if one of my top agents was like, hey man, I'm moving to Austin, Texas, but I want to bring the team out to Austin. Right. And the right person was there and the opportunity was there. Like then I would do it in a heartbeat. Yeah, right. So is that kind of how these cities have come up in these different states of whether a relocation or just, somebody that you really knew that you trusted that, presented that opportunity and it just made sense?
Yeah. So the first one was in Richmond, and we ended up partnering with somebody who, it was kind of like a convoluted way of getting to where we are right now. And so, Lindsay's kind of our main expansion partner down there. And in the first year being together, we've, essentially helped her, triple her business, get up to almost 30 million in year one, mainly because, we have a system now that we can just recruit and plug agents into, going from, I mean, literally most teams, you look at most teams, and I don't have a statistic for it, I just have anecdotal evidence, but you see most of the teams are like 1 to 3 agents. They'll have an admin, and then the admin staff will quit, and then there'll be no value, and then the agents will quit, and then they'll hire a new admin and then have to just start from scratch. And so, I mean, you look at like a sailboat, wind and waves will knock it over. You start building a destroyer, and when it's going to take some serious wind and waves to knock it over. And being able to have a deep bench, if somebody leaves, you're able to have help versus you becoming the help. And so I think that's why, we look at Richmond, they blew it up. And then we moved to Virginia Beach just because we have so many referrals down there. I mean, just so much in the way of business. I mean, we're right near the Pentagon, and then Norfolk is the largest Navy base in the world. And so, there's just a lot down there. And then now as we started up here in our MLS, I mean, you can drive with traffic in the DC area, you can drive, maybe 2 hours and still be in our MLS. And so that's why, it just started making sense to kind of expand locally in our MLS to have people that can be a little bit more hyper local. Cause it is harder to, have a showing 2 hours away. And so, I think as we continue to expand, it's probably going to be much more in the MLSs that we're in, just as talent comes in. Expansion, I listen to so many of my friends that are doing expansion, and it hasn't been profitable for a lot of people. For us, we've just really, really worked hard to lead with revenue. And so we've helped our agents, do very well and end up being very profitable.
Well, and you've been strategic with it, right? Like the Virginia Beach thing, that makes a ton of sense, right? Where, I'll talk to people that like, maybe they have a team up in Seattle and they're like, oh, well, I want to start an expansion team in San Diego just because I want to spend time on the beach. 2 different markets, and it's like, it's so, yeah, I think if, it's strategic like you've done, then it makes sense. And the thing I like about what you've done too is, like, dude, it's all driving distance, right?
Right.
Like, like you can make it to Virginia Beach, and bam, you can be down there right? It might be harder if you had something in California, right? With that. So then as far as your structure, do you with the hub, do you keep like all your support staff at the hub, or do you hire support staff in each of those locations?
So almost all of our support staff is in the hub. We do have, let's see, I'm losing track now. I think we've got like 5 virtual assistants in the Philippines. So the majority of our support staff and then their assistants are outside. You hear so many people complaining about the virtual assistants in the Philippines not being great, or wherever not being great. But we worked really hard to hire great ones and then just kind of have them pass off their busy work. Again, giving them leverage so that their work can be done at a higher level. So all of that is here. And then in the individual locations, they don't have, staff, admin staff there locally. We haven't run into something where we've had conversations with people where they wanted to bring on their own admin staff that they've already had, and I'm sure we could work something out on that front if that's like a, thing they need to do, but that hasn't come up so far.
Yeah, love it. So then do you ever, before we hit the record button, I was talking about exiting, right? I mean, I completely exited from my real estate team, and now I'm back involved again, just from a I guess a leadership operation level. And one thing that definitely did get hindered without my involvement was culture and that belonging. And I know that word gets thrown around, but if it's done right, it matters. Right? Like, you can say the best systems, the best training, the best support, but dude, if people want to belong to a group, like it's like, like you got people that are diehard football fans and they didn't like play for that team, or, when you look at politics, people want to belong to something, right? And mine, dude, like it hurt us, right? Of when I stepped out, I didn't plan for that, right? So, with that being said, man, do you find with you being where you're at, like the culture there being a little bit different than the virtual locations? And if so, like, what are some of the things that you've done to, it's never gonna be the same. You don't can be in one place at one time, but maybe what are some of the things that you've done maybe to kind of somewhat create that same culture?
Yeah. I think one of the things, and this is something that we're working on like crazy. So 2019 for our system, and again, this a slight bunny trail to get back to what you're asking. 2019 is the year of the database for the team and the year of accountability for the leadership on it, where like we just want to raise our accountability on everything. And so part of who we are when we have these morning huddles and we have some training in the mornings, we have the book that we're reading. So very education, learning, growth-based, all of that stuff is, that's the key. We're a coaching consulting business that's good at real estate, and so that's kind of that key there that we've worked to spread across, but what I have seen is that there are some locations that we have right now that are working to get to a place where they're cold. So one of the things we do is, we to our office, pretty regularly, so that they can see what we're doing, kind of continue to get a feel for what we're doing, and then just, really hold people accountable to the standards that we have for them. Because even the best people, we need accountability, right? So that's kind of that piece that we're bringing into that. But as far as like, having me personally in those places, I do believe we've got dynamic leaders, in the different places that are very good, and then just trying to make sure that they, hold the standards that we hold here is the key to winning.
Yeah. Cause I got to imagine, man, with as busy you are in the real estate business where you're at, plus 6 kids, plus, multiple other businesses, you probably can't be on a plane every other week to these different locations. That would disrupt your life very heavily, right? So, yeah, I love it, man. So then, you talked about accountability, dude, and that seems to be the missing piece. Yeah, right. Like I spent the first 9 years of my career at Remax, and I switched 4 years ago to just a privately owned mom and pop shop here in Phoenix, but dude, like you look at like Remax, and I left there for a reason. The infrastructure, was tough to grow a team. But if you look at like the highest, I think they're like almost 18 closings per year per agent on average. So if you look at like for all the franchise big companies out there, they're the highest per agent productivity. And I always wondered why, because I'm like I did, I was at Remax, but I go to all Keller Williams trainings, right? Like I'm like, it wasn't, right? But it was, dude, I had to pay $8.95 a month, whether I was selling or not. There was that fee, and it took me a long time to discover that. I'm like, that's accountability, right? In another way, but that's my theory of, because dude, they don't offer better systems, they don't offer better training. It's inferior to a lot of the companies out there, right? So what is it? So, John Cheplack, who's a good buddy of mine, has been mentoring me for a lot of years, and one of the top recruiting coaches out there. He's like, look, like let's just say, for example, like, all right, Chris, like you take this group of agents. And then, I got this group. This would be John speaking. So John, like, all right, I'm going to take this group. Now, all you can do, now you give them all the tools, the systems, whatever, and all you can do is coach, mentor, and try to motivate them. Right? Now, with my people, I'm not allowed to teach them anything. All I'm able to do is hold them accountable, micro commitments, and hold them accountable. It's like this group will trump every time. And that's just, that's what's missing in real estate, right? Is the accountability. We don't, like, how many people do we see do that were rock stars in their business before, jump in real estate and flop because they had a boss and a manager. There was accountability. And that's a tough thing, dude, right? Because these are independent contractors. Yeah, they work exclusively for you. Yeah, right. And then it's like you can also go to the extreme where it becomes counterproductive because you're babysitting so much or whatever. And that's maybe a bad term, but like, what do you do that's been very effective for you to hold these people accountable?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we're working on right now to kind of level up, in our business. So yeah, part of that is, just we do have a weekly accountability meeting every, we ask, well, actually we have, in our morning huddles, we ask people, how many two-way conversations they had, what they were supposed to have, how many closings, how many pendings, all of that. So we do ask that pretty much daily. And then we have a Thursday afternoon 10-minute accountability meeting where they go through and they have to share their numbers, whether they hit goal or miss goal.
And that's one-on-one?
Yeah, one-on-one. Yeah, and we're working really hard to, because these 10 minutes keep rolling over. So we're working really hard to have a 10-minute cutoff, and then we want to have any other conversations about other things. That's another time. But right now, that's been one of the things that we're working on to 10 minutes each, especially as the team is growing. It can take your whole, take days, take your whole week if you don't keep it 10 minutes. But the other piece that we're working on right now, is just taking Boomtown to another level. That was a piece that I really was convicted on earlier this year, is that, when you have a CRM like this, or any sort of a system like this, if you don't use it, like all of the bells and whistles, I mean, it's like, having a Lambo that you treat like a Toyota Corolla, you leave it out on the street and, let it rust. And, bottom line is you see, like, you can tag all these people where you can send the mass text, like Happy Father's Day to everybody's dad, like just little things like that, little touches. You can have them tagged when they've been talked to. You can literally check and make sure that the numbers are like that people are making their contacts. And if they're not, then you just say, all right, well, is this the right fit for you? If you're not willing to pay the price to be here, you have that fit. And that was the other thing that I've learned in accountability. Actually, a good friend of mine just shared this with me this Sunday. He owns a huge string of car dealerships. And he's like, Chris, here's the one thing I've learned about accountability. He's like, never draw the red line in the sand. He's like, you draw the red line in the sand. He's like, over the years, what I found is sometimes the people that you don't want to leave will not do what you ask them to do. And then you either have to not be consistent and let them, have free reign, or you have to fire somebody that you really don't want to fire. He's like, what you got to do is you draw the line and say, look, this has to happen, or we're going to have a hard conversation. And then, the hard conversation needs to take each individual as a whole. All right, well, are they not entering their numbers, but somehow they're still doing like 30 deals a year? Well, all right, we need to talk through, like, what is the deal? Like, what are we going to do to increase this? Or are they entering all their numbers, but they're closing, a deal a year? And then you have that other thing. So that's the piece that we're working on our accountability structure is making sure we don't draw the line in the sand, but literally, when we set a line, they need to live up to it. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what we're playing with right now, really working on.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's the thing that every team leader that I know, struggles with, right? To the point where I just gave up. I'm like pick your battles, right? So, right. And I just created accountability, I guess, in another way of it just, it would just be all right. Like leads still get dispersed, but it's all based on their percentage of production from the month before. So if, let's just say the rock star number one agent on the team that month closed 15% of all the closings, they get 15% of leads, right? If you close 0%, you get 0%, right? So you want more leads. I just feel like, dude, this was the most equal, but also fair system, because equal and fair don't mean the same thing, right? And then it was, then because again, man, it takes so much energy and I'm sure there's a way to get it right, but man, it's hard, right? So
here's something else that we're playing with as well. So, I look at some of these MLM models out there, and so often in real estate, we want to use the stick only, but some of these MLM things, they have, you do a certain number of things and you level up, you get a new name, and then you start over again or whatever, or you qualify for it, you cruise qualify or whatever, you qualify. So we're actually about to roll this out where, if people hit a certain number of deals, and see, this is where we're wrestling with it, because areas, the deals have to be different. Our price point is much bigger than, say, Richmond or Virginia Beach. So, the deals, have to be also correlate with volume as well. But if everybody hits a certain number of deals, we're talking about taking them on a vacation or doing something where, we're using both carrot and stick. But so often when we think about accountability, I mean, in my mind, it's always been stick. And that's one of the things I'm learning, as I'm thinking through what these MLM things that are doing successfully are really, really should translate into our real estate business.
Yeah. Hit this production, you get a Beamer, right? I mean, it's at least for 2 years of but yeah.
100 deals, you get a Beamer. I'll do that.
Yeah, love it, dude. All right, man. So you've translated this also into other I guess verticals or other spaces, but they're all synergistic. Like you have an insurance company, you have a title company, you have a construction company, right? And all that makes a lot of sense, right? What led to those, and what kind of recommendation would you give for others to do the same?
Yeah, I heard one of my coaches said to me at one point in time, he said, hey, Chris, you can get more clients or more of the client. And it just made sense, you think about it, they're like, they're going to use these things anyway. And you just got to have a darn good product, because if you're selling crap, your name is associated with it. And so you gotta have a darn good product. And so I'd gotten into a bunch of things in the past just because shiny objects, that's like my Achilles heel, where I want to run after these shiny objects just because, I like to run, I like to start new things. And you literally can do anything. You just can't do everything. And so when I look at that, I started thinking through these shiny objects, and then I was like, all right, these are things that I can get a business partner that they run everything. They are with it. And then the time I add, should just add huge fuel to the fire. I'm not the fire. I'm adding gas to the fire. And so the ones that have been successful for me are ones where it's not dependent on me. It's dependent on my business partner making sure it runs, and then I add gas to the fire. So with title, honestly, I was looking at JV options. I was looking at all these different options for title. And the interesting thing to me was, so my business partner, him and I were actually cooking food for our young adults college group at church one night. And as I was looking at stuff, he had a really successful law firm, that started and really started growing really fast, just like our real estate firm did. And he was just like, hey, have you ever thought about title? And we just started having the conversation, and we were going to do the joint venture. And then, he's like, what if we did this thing together? You've got, pretty big influence. You can leverage your influence. And then, obviously I can run this stuff. I'm an attorney. I can, I built out the infrastructure on the law firm. I could build it out for title. And so that just made sense. Looking at insurance, everybody that buys a house needs insurance. That just made a lot of sense. And so We joined with it. We franchised. I went through like the option of like starting independent or jumping with a franchise. We jumped with a franchise that was, taking crazy market share. So it just made sense. I got a business partner that runs that. He takes all the calls and runs it. He's really good, just really working hard to grow that. Construction, my brother was a superintendent for a long time. And so we started building this thing out. And I mean, honestly, when you look at dollar per hour, that's probably the most lucrative dollar per hour. He doesn't do any punch out, which is an area I know we're leaving money on the table. But for him, again, leverage, for doing kitchens and bathrooms and additions and new builds and all that stuff, dollar per hour. I mean, that is a very, very lucrative business. But all of those things don't depend on me. So anyway, I hope that makes sense.
No, I love it, man. I mean, and you're so right. Like, what was it? This past Sunday, took my kids to go see the Nutcracker. So we go there, like we buy our movie tickets, right? But then you go in there and like about the movie tickets that we want to see the movie that accomplish that goal. But then you go in there and it's like, all right, here's the concessions. So you're buying popcorn, candy, drinks, right? Of, all these different add-ons. Every other industry does it. You jump on an airplane, right? They're offering you the beer, the drinks, the food, the video package. And what I love about with what you do, like you think about the construction company, right? Well, like a lot of our clients are going to need to, do repairs through that, 7-10 years that they own the home. But think about leads, right? Like maybe like a common thing, like, hey, call them up. Oh, we just bought. Oh, hey, congrats. What'd you buy? Tell me about it. Oh, that's so awesome, man. Hey, just so you know, in addition to being real estate agents, so you just got an amazing home. Sounds like you're set there. And who knows, a decade or two when you're ready to sell, maybe you can, think of us and whatever then. But, whatever, just so you know, we also have this service, so if you want any repairs or whatever, we can assist you with it. Like you just add more tools to the toolbox that you can bring value to them and solidify that relationship. Like most real estate agents are like one, like a one-stop, like just, that's it, right?
I mean, I literally straight up, I had some friends of ours that I hadn't talked to in a long time, found out they had just bought a house and needed their bathroom remodeled. I made $2,000 because I got that done. So I was like bummed because I missed out. And then, made $2,000 on my portion of what I make in the construction company because they needed their bathroom remodeled. I was like, all right, that works.
It's brilliant, man. Well, and too, dude, like, I mean, we're all feeling it, right? The pinch on commissions. I mean, it's like real estate is probably the only industry on this planet that with technology that like everything else, like service gets better, prices get cheaper, right? And over time, like for us, it's going to come too. So we got to be very strategic about, other revenue sources. Cause you said the fastest way to now money isn't more transactions. It's a higher dollar, sales ticket per client, right? So, no, I love it, man. So,
and I'll tell you with the last out there out on this, like with title, like most agents don't realize the opportunity with title, because they don't understand where compliance begins and where it ends and like where everything is. And so there's just so much opportunity on title that people don't know. And so like, I'm spending so much of my time educating, my friends on that. And then, they're looking at it and call me back and they're like, man, let's get into business together. So like, then we're able to do some business, like joint venture type stuff and grow up on that stuff. And so that's where, it just gets crazy, like seeing like the opportunity that most agents just don't realize because I mean, with the teams growing as big as they are, I mean, they're bigger than a lot of the brokerages now. And so they just don't understand that there's power in that, So.
Yeah. Yep. No, I was just, thinking about, as you're talking about that, I'm like, all right, this bad boy right here, right? So Apple did not become the first $1 trillion company to ever exist by selling iPhones, iPads, and computers, right? It's like, all right, so then they create it's iTunes and right? Well, the other people who create the content, they house it. They've got the audience. They get 30% of the revenue that comes in. The person gets 70%. It's everybody wins. Yeah, right. And we just got to look at these other spaces to connect the dots of, well, how do we deliver that to our consumer, right, to our customer, right, and serve them, ongoing, not just like once every 10 years, right? So, I know we're getting a little bit long on time. So one question I always like to ask our guests, toward the end of the podcast is, you've had a hell of a 4-year career. I mean, like you've done in 4 years what most don't do in 50, right? So it's impressive and it's insane to see what you've already accomplished. And really, I mean, short period of time, man. But with that being said, man, everything that you know now today, like you're a student of the game, you're always learning, and that's very evident with you on the podcast here. But knowing everything you know right now, if you could rewind the clocks and go back and have a conversation with yourself 4 years ago and give yourself 2 pieces of advice that you feel would just fast forward this trajectory to success, what would that look like?
Well, honestly, I mean, I'll tell you, one of the things, you talked about this before we got on air, and when you said it, I didn't mention anything about it, but probably a piece of advice that I heard you say on one of your podcasts a while back was probably one of the most game-changing pieces for me leveling up was, stop clawing after that next deal and figure out how you can work on, and I guess I misheard it. I was like 5 to 50 deals, and you were saying just 50, only. And honestly, that's probably the biggest change where, looking to say, all right, how can I do anything that I'm doing to replicate it, to make it bigger, outside of me trading my time for dollars? How can I, really build a business that like goes out, puts on overalls and goes to work for itself, and so, that's the piece right there, that if I could have just understood leverage at a bigger level, like thinking through, every piece, being bigger. I think that, I would have just grown so much faster than I did now. And I just understand life in a better level. And so I'm even working on that now. I think about, I literally think about that almost every day. So yeah, yep. Thanks for that.
Yeah. But hey, man, I got it. I told you before we started this podcast, I heard it from Ryan Finch. Later to find out, I found Ryan Finch got the same piece of mentorship advice from Leo Pareja, right? Like it's, right? And I'm sure Leo heard it from somebody else, right?
Originality is forgetting who you stole it from, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It is like, there's no such thing as an original thought anymore, right? It's R&D, rip off and deploy, right? So the cool thing about that, dude, is it takes the same effort. Recruiting an agent is almost identical to getting a listing, the whole entire process. We break it down, and it takes the same effort. But I go get this listing, I get 1 listing, and even if I get 3 referrals out of it, right? But that same amount of time and energy to recruit an agent, their lifetime with my company might do 50, 75 deals. Like, how do you want to invest your time? And, so I love it, man. So easy.
But I also throw this one other thing too. Like in recruiting, there's 4 things. I heard somebody say you want somebody hungry, humble, and smart. And I've also found, I want to add happy to it. Happy, hungry, humble, and smart. That those are the people that you look for. I think that was a game changer for me. I've had people that are hungry, humble, and smart on the team, and you realize that, some of them have come in and, a mentor of mine when I was doing ministry stuff told me, like, Chris, if somebody comes in and they're ticked off at their old church, they hate their old pastor, and they say, oh man, your church is awesome. I love you. I love the church. Tell them about another one, because it's just a matter of time. They're going to hate you just like they did the old place. And I've seen that happen, like with team members. If they're disgruntled, they're going to be disgruntled with you. Wherever they go, they're going to be disgruntled. Every once in a while, it's not true, but anytime, that's a huge warning sign for me when somebody does that. Hungry. Looking. If you don't open up their chest and see the heart of a lion in there, it's just not somebody that you really want to be in business with. Because again, you're like you were talking about, like pulling versus running with them or letting them run. Humble if they're not learners. We just don't have time to help people if they're not going to learn on their own. And then smart, obviously, that goes without saying. You just, you got not just IQ but EQ. So anyway, those are probably the 2 things that have like really shaped how I see life and business. So anyway.
Yeah, I love it, dude. And I don't know if he stole it from somebody, but that's something I hear Dave Ramsey saying all the time. In his happy, hungry, or no, the hungry, humble, smart. And a lot of people think about, I got all these low producing agents. It's not even really about their production, right? It's about the drain on your energy. I believe in success through osmosis. Like if you got these, Jim Rohn's famous quote, right? You're the success that 5 people spend most time around. Do you want a freaking loser dud that's pulling you down, that's moping around the office? That levels the energy of everybody, right? So critical, man. All right, guys, I know I end every podcast with this, but information without implementation, I just screwed up the quote. Information is not a power. It's taking that information, taking massive action on it that creates power in our life, right? So again, information without implementation truly is the start of delusion. So Chris shared so many amazing pieces of advice with you guys. They take something that you learn and go out there and take immediate action. So you go out there and create the life that you know you want and deserve. I truly appreciate you guys watching, all of your support. And Chris, man, this has been a hell of a time. This has been an honor, man. I truly appreciate you being here, dude.
Thanks so much, brother. I really enjoyed it, man. You're the man.
Yeah, it's been an honor, my friend. All right, you guys, we will see you next time. Peace.